So good evening. My name is Janet Sewell. I've been working with Imago Dei for the past year and a half. And today I'm going to be talking about, are we creating technology or is it creating us? So the older generation is always lamenting the fact that all of this technology is making us antisocial. I mean, just look at this picture. Nobody's talking to each other. We're all in our cell phones and that's it. But what they don't realize is that in the past, they were doing the exact same thing, except with different kinds of technology. At least today, we're less likely to hit people in the face with our cell phones than they were in hitting people with their newspapers. So at least it's more contained now than before. Then came the Walkman, then came the Discman, the iPod, and now the iPhone. But technology has always shaped our world, and even more so today than ever before. As soon as a new piece of technology comes out, it doesn't take too long for us to start depending upon it. We cannot live without a modern means of transportation, or our computers, or even, heaven forbid, our cell phones. How many here, as soon as you woke up, actually reached for your cell phone before actually getting out of bed? Yeah, I did. I wanted to find out what my mom was doing in Iceland, what my sister was doing in Dubai, what my brother's doing in Thailand with my niece. We're a connected world because of technology. It's actually created a new word in our vocabulary, that of glocal. We're both local and global at the exact same time. We have information ready at our fingertips whenever we want it. The world is smaller. We're able to travel farther and in shorter amount of time. So technology has actually given us quite a lot. Yet we keep hearing about the detrimental effect that it is having upon us. So is it really as bad as they say it is? First of all, I would like to define what kind of technology I'm going to be talking about here tonight. There's typically 4 kinds of technologies out there. Technology that extends our physical strength and resilience, such as cars and machinery, and my personal favorite, space travel. Another technology is the one that extends our senses, such as microscopes and hearing aids. A third will allow us to reshape nature, such as genetically modified crops. And the one that I'm going to be talking about tonight is intellectual technologies, such as the internet and digital media. These are the technologies that are the closest to us, and so are the ones that have the most lasting influence over our thought processes and how we see ourselves as human beings. We often say that technology is simply a tool, something that doesn't affect us. It's something that we just pick up, we use, and we put down when we're done using it. The question that I want to explore here tonight is it really just simply a tool? And does it matter to us if it's not? There's been a lot of research done today showing us that intellectual technologies are reshaping the way that we think. Not just superficially, but in a deep, profound way. It's affecting our cognitive abilities. And we need to understand how technology is doing that so we can make an educated decision as to, yes, I will allow technology to affect me this way, or no, I will not allow technology to affect and take over my life. Intellectual technologies affect us in many different ways, but I will be looking at 4 of those tonight. They affect, first of all, our concentration, the quality of the information that we gather, our reading patterns, and our memory. So imagine that you're using your cell phone to read an article. You start off, and then all of a sudden, you get a notification of an email that has just come in. 2 seconds later, you get another notification that comes in, and it's about a Facebook post that you put up. And then after about a minute, you get another notification, and it's an SMS. And that one you actually do need to respond to because it's a family member, and so you do. And while you do that, you might as well look and respond to that email that you just received and then actually see what your friend thought about that video that you posted up on Facebook. By the time you get back to your article, you have actually no idea what you were reading. And so you start all over again. This time, though, you really are dedicated. You will read this thing and you will get through the whole thing. And so as you start reading, you get to a hypertext, a hyperlink. And because the author thought that it was important enough to put there, you click on it because you want to find out what the author is wanting to communicate through this hyperlink. And about 20 minutes later, you've gone through 10 different websites. You've signed up to 2 different accounts, and you've signed up for another 3 different newsletters. And you still have not read that article that you started off with. How many of us has that actually happened to? Happens to me all the time. Yeah, thank you. So all of this distraction is actually having a profound effect on a physiological state of our brains. In the last few years, scientists are realizing that our brains are not stagnant, but they're constantly changing. A new piece of knowledge or a new memory is the equivalent of one or several new synapses being formed between neurons in our brains. Memory is a physical change in our brains. And in the same way, if we stop using part of that brain, the brain will refocus all of its energies elsewhere and stop building here, but start building there instead. If we think of learning a language in high school, some of us, that's been a little longer than for others, but anyway, you remember maybe a little bit about the French that you learned back then, but back then you're actually able to speak a lot more French. It's because your brain has rerouted those synapses and you're working more with the working knowledge that you need in your day-to-day life. So, and that's exactly what's happening with new technology. It is forming new synapses and connections at the expense of the ones that we're not using anymore, i.e. concentration. Now, if we go back to the hyperlinks, we have them everywhere. They're in every single article that we read, and they're in every single blog post that we read. And back in the past, they were actually hailed as amazing. People were really excited about hyperlinks, but what they didn't realize is how bad they are for us and for our concentration. Even if we ignore the links, our brain still has to stop and make a decision, I'm not going to click on this thing. So Shakespeare's great question, to be or not to be, has actually become to click or not to click. Studies have been made where 2 groups were given the exact same text, one with hyperlinks in it and another without any hyperlinks. And the people that were reading without the hyperlinks actually got more out of the article. So it really does show that hypertext does break up our concentration, and we're resulted in a shallower reading of the text. So the more that we use technology, the more our brains are physically changing and adapting to this concentration scattering technology. And after a while, our brains start craving these distractions. And while those synapses are being reinforced, it comes at the cost and the weakening of the synapses that are needed for longer periods of concentration. For example, we don't have the patience anymore to read a book, or we have a hard time concentrating in class. Not only is technology affecting our concentration, but it's also affecting the quality of the information that we're gathering. Our brain has 2 memory systems, a short-term memory and a long-term memory. Now, before anything gets stored into the long-term memory, it has to be processed by the short-term memory. Now, imagine that your long-term memory is a bathtub, and your short-term memory is a thimble, dactylithra, I think it is in Greek. And you're trying to fill your bathtub with all of this information with this little thimble. Now, the internet, if we imagine it being several faucets of water streaming, that thimble, what you're doing is you're trying to catch information and pieces of data here and there and filling it into your bathtub. But what are you ending up with in your bathtub? Scattered data, bits and pieces of different ideas. You don't have a full argument or a full idea. Now, if you contrast that to reading a book, for example, a book is one faucet, one data stream, and it's trickling as fast or as slowly as you want it to go because it's your own reading speed. Now, you stick that same thimble under there and you fill it with your bathtub. What's happening is you're actually feeding your brain a full idea, a full argument. Reading is another way that technology has affected us. We're faced with more words today than ever before, with places like Twitter and Facebook, blogs and articles. But scientists are realizing that we're not reading anymore, we're skimming. Now, there's nothing wrong with skimming if skimming is a means to an end, in the sense where you're trying to figure out if this piece of information is worth your time and you actually want to start digging into it. But what scientists are realizing is that skimming is the end now. We're no longer reading to get information or no longer reading to understand, we're reading to find data. And so our brain allows all of this data into the short-term memory, but because there's so much stuff out there, it's actually not allowing it into the long-term memory. Memory is the fourth way that I'm going to be looking at how technology is affecting. We're not taking time to memorize things anymore. Why? Because we don't need to. As soon as we want to remember a fact, we just pick up our phone and we Google it. The internet and technology has become an extension of our brain to such a degree that people say that it's actually pointless to memorize anything. If I need something, I'll just pick up my phone and I'm done. I actually met a physicist in Oxford who is a researcher for Oxford University. Now, he has to be a pretty smart cookie to be able to work as a researcher there. Even he told me, Janet, I don't remember half of the equations that I need to use. I just go to Wikipedia all the time. That same equation 50 years ago would have taken anywhere between 5 and 20 minutes to get, because he had to go find that reference book, find the specific equation, and then apply it. It would take even longer if he had to go find that book in a library. So remembering that equation back then was important because it was saving him precious time. Today, within seconds, we have it, so what's the point? So technology is negatively affecting our concentration with all of its notifications and hyperlinks. The quality of the information that we're getting is greatly diminished because we end up with bits and pieces of data rather than fully formed ideas or arguments. And we're no longer reading for knowledge, but skimming for information. And we stop memorizing things. So what does this mean? All of this means that we are becoming more and more shallow thinkers. Because we're always being distracted, our brains want more distractions, and we're losing the ability to sit quietly and think, to pick a book up and read it, to wrestle with an idea. We now actually have hard times assimilating complex ideas because we're data-driven. A person can know a lot of facts about the world. So, for example, somebody can know that the capital of Greece is Athens and that they've seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but that doesn't mean that they know Greece and understand the culture. So what can we do? We need to start viewing technology for what it is. It's not just a simple tool, but as something that is affecting us in a profound and in a neurological way. Once we realize that, we can regain power over it. We can be conscious of when and how we use it. We also have the choice of making ourselves sit down and actually read a book or go for a walk and reflect on life, to force our minds to quiet down and regain control over our concentration and the information that we feed our brains. Why is this so important? Because thinking well is the precursor to wisdom. According to Dr. Anton Bucas, wisdom is when you see and understand the world you live in and successfully navigate through it. We all want to be wise. We all want to be able to successfully navigate through life. But for that, we actually need a map. And this map that we have is our worldview. A worldview is a framework or set of fundamental beliefs through which we see and interact with the world. Now imagine a pair of blue sunglasses that you put up. You see the world, but you have a blue tint to it. Your friend next to you has another pair of sunglasses, but his are red. So he sees the exact same world and the exact same information, but his tint is in red. And that's exactly what a worldview is. It's often actually called a bias. C.S. Lewis once said, "I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else." Lewis here is expressing his Christian worldview. We all have one, whether we realize it or not. It's a set of questions that we all need to answer. Does a God exist? And if yes, which one? What is the nature of external reality? What happens after death? What is a human being? How do we know what is right and wrong? And how can we know anything? And where do we gain knowledge from? It is extremely important for any person to have a solid grasp on their worldview, but is especially important today because technology is becoming our framework and is changing our answers to these fundamental questions. The questions of what is external reality, that is the world around us, and where do we get knowledge from, are slowly changing. The digital world has become just as real to us as the physical world, and for some of us, even more so. What we need to keep in mind is that the digital world is a mere echo of the real world. A picture is a representation of a real place, but it doesn't do it justice. I spent a week in the Himalayas a few years ago, and I can tell you that my photos do not even come close to how splendid those mountains actually are. And it's the same with technology. A Skype call, a text message, and even an email, they're all echoes of real physical face-to-face conversations. What's happening though is that people say that they prefer texting over face-to-face conversations. Why? Because we have the time to think and edit what we want to say in a way that we can't in a real conversation. So the text has become more real than the physical conversation. My iPad just went on me. I'm very sorry. Don't trust, exactly. Case in point, right here. So I was saying, so the text has become more real than the physical conversation. I've also been told on several occasions, Janet, I actually don't need to travel anymore. All I have to do is watch the documentary on TV and I get to see all of these amazing places. For that person, that documentary has become the real thing and is more real to them than the destination itself. But what the TV can give you is the sensation of being there, the smells, the taste, the people. In a very real way, technology has become the experience today. If we view the digital world as reality, why do we need to leave the comfort of our own homes? If a human being is just another data stream, why do I need to have a face-to-face conversation? If an online picture or a video is reality, why do I need to go see the real thing? And this in turn is changing our worldview question of how we gain knowledge. It's gone from being experience-based to being data-driven. We are becoming more shallow in an age that should make richness and depth so much easier. Because of the nature of technology, depth has to become a conscious choice. We have to choose depth over shallowness. We need to make sure that our framework for life comes from our worldview, and it's from that place that we need to use technology, so that technology does not dictate our course in life. So a human being is not just another data stream. Yes, I will go out to coffee with you. The digital world isn't prime reality. Yes, I will go out and explore the world. Knowledge is more than just the sum of data. Yes, I will go out and experience the world. That doesn't mean that we can't watch the movie or read that blog or that article, but it means questioning it. What is the message of this movie? What is it trying to tell us? Analyze it. Any movie is a carefully constructed metaphor for a message that the director is trying to convey. But most of us, we don't stop to think about that message. We talk about that fighting scene or how cool the car chase was. And the message becomes a lot more of a subconscious thing, which is dangerous, because we're not stopping to think about what we're being told. We're just indiscriminately accepting it. Sex before marriage is okay. Actually, sex is love, not the product of love. You're not whole unless you have a significant other. These are the subliminal messages that we're receiving, and we start believing in regardless of what our worldview is telling us. Most people today will get their morality, their sense of right and wrong from the media. How many of us, when we start watching a movie, we start rooting for the criminals, cheering them on, and we view the police as the bad guys? We start believing that evil is actually good and good is actually bad. The internet is also amoral. It doesn't tell us that what we're watching, reading, or looking at is good or bad. It's just data that it's displaying. We need to look carefully at where we get our morality from. It has to come from within our worldview. Otherwise, our morality will change depending on what movie we're watching or what article we're reading at the moment, or what the journalists are trying to tell us. We become a wave in the sea, tossed around by the strongest current or wind of that moment. Technology ceases to be the product that we use, but we become the product of technology. The thing that makes us unique as human beings is not just our genetic makeup, but it is the innate value that God has placed upon our lives, coupled with our worldview, our relationship, our experiences, and our knowledge. And technology is actually stripping us of that part of our personality. Now, we're all going to be influenced by technology. We can't help that. But what we can choose is how much we're influenced by it. Socrates once said that the unexamined life is not worth living. And I'm saying that it's about time that we start re-examining ours. Thank you.